They say you never really know someone until you live with them. What they don't tell you is that after 15 years of marriage, you might discover you've been living with a complete stranger all along. My name is Dan Foster, and I'm about to tell you how I went from being a respected home inspector to the neighborhood pariah, and then to something else entirely. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. It started on a Tuesday morning in September. I was sitting at our kitchen table, drinking coffee that tasted like disappointment and reading inspection reports, when my wife Claire breezed in wearing a power suit that probably cost more than my monthly salary. She worked for Meridian Marketing, one of those companies that somehow made millions convincing people they needed things they'd never heard of. "Don't forget Emily's coming home this weekend," she said, without looking at me, pouring herself coffee into a travel mug that had Boss Lady written on it in gold letters. Our daughter was a junior at Boston University, studying business like her mother. "I remember," I said, though honestly I'd forgotten. These days, Claire handled most of the family scheduling. I was just expected to show up and play the role of devoted husband and father. "We're having dinner with Sean and his family Saturday night," she continued, checking her phone. 7 o'clock at Oceanside. Sean Beckett. Claire's old college friend who'd somehow wormed his way back into our lives about 2 years ago. He was a corporate lawyer with a BMW, a house in Newton, and the kind of smile that made you want to count your fingers after shaking his hand. "Great," I said, not meaning it. "Can't wait to hear more about his yacht." Claire shot me a look. "He's successful, Dan. Some people appreciate ambition." There it was. The dig. The implication that I, a guy who made decent money keeping people from buying houses with foundation problems, somehow lacked ambition. I'd heard variations of this theme for months now. "Some people appreciate honesty too," I replied, but she was already walking away, heels clicking on our hardwood floors like a countdown timer. That weekend, Emily came home looking tired and stressed about her upcoming finals. She hugged me tight when I picked her up from the train station, and for a moment, everything felt normal again. "How's Mom?" she asked as we drove home. "Your mother is your mother," I said, which was my diplomatic way of saying Claire had been acting like a stranger wearing my wife's face. Dinner at Oceanside was exactly as painful as I'd expected. Sean showed up with his wife Jessica, a quiet woman who always looked like she'd rather be anywhere else, and their teenage son Kyle, who spent the entire meal staring at his phone. Sean dominated the conversation, as usual. He talked about his latest case, his new car, and yes, his boat. Claire hung on every word like he was delivering the Sermon on the Mount. "Dan, you should come out on the water with us sometime," Sean said, cutting into his $50 steak. "Claire tells me you used to love sailing." "I did," I said, "back when I could afford it." "Oh, come on," Sean laughed. "Money isn't everything, although it does make life more comfortable." He winked at Claire, who giggled like a schoolgirl. I watched my wife laugh at another man's jokes and felt something cold settle in my chest. Emily noticed too. She kept glancing between her mother and Sean with a puzzled expression. After dinner, while we waited for our cars from the valet, I overheard Sean talking to Claire in what he probably thought was a whisper. "You look beautiful tonight," he said. "That dress is incredible on you." "Thank you," Claire replied, and her voice had a warmth in it that I hadn't heard directed at me in months. The drive home was quiet. Emily fell asleep in the back seat, and Claire stared out the passenger window like she was watching a movie I wasn't invited to see. Over the next few weeks, things got worse. Claire started working late more often. She'd come home smelling like expensive cologne that definitely wasn't mine. She bought new clothes, got her hair done, and started going to yoga classes that seemed to meet at very convenient times. I'm not stupid. I've been around long enough to recognize the signs, but I also wasn't ready to face what those signs meant. The breaking point came on a Friday night in October. I'd finished a particularly difficult inspection, a beautiful colonial that turned out to have termites, water damage, and electrical work that would have made Thomas Edison weep, and I came home looking forward to a quiet evening with my family. The house was dark except for the back patio, where I could see the glow of our fire pit. I heard voices and laughter, so I walked around back to join whatever gathering was happening. Claire was there with her best friend Tara, and they were both clearly several drinks into the evening. They didn't see me at first, so I heard Tara say, "I still can't believe you're actually going through with this." "It's time," Claire replied. "I can't keep pretending everything's fine. Dan's a good man, but he's not the man I married. He's gotten so comfortable, so boring." "And Sean?" Tara asked with a knowing smile. Claire's laugh was like broken glass. "Sean makes me feel alive again. He makes me feel like I'm worth something more than grocery lists and home inspection reports." I stood there in the shadows, listening to my wife of 15 years explain to her friend why I wasn't good enough for her anymore. They talked about my dad bod, my lack of ambition, and how I'd become invisible in my own life. "The thing is," Claire continued, "I think Dan already knows something's wrong. He just doesn't want to deal with it. He's always been conflict averse." "So what's the plan?" Tara asked. "I'm going to ask for a separation after the holidays. Emily doesn't need this drama during her senior year." I backed away quietly and went inside, my hands shaking as I poured myself 3 fingers of whiskey. I sat in my home office, surrounded by inspection reports and certificates, and tried to figure out when I'd become a stranger in my own life. That night, I lay in bed next to my wife and listened to her breathe, wondering if she was dreaming about another man. I stared at the ceiling and made a decision that would change everything. If Claire wanted to play games, I could play games too. But I'd been a journalist before I became a home inspector, and journalists know how to dig up dirt. They also know how to bury people with the truth. I just had to be patient and wait for the right moment. 3 months passed like a slow-motion car crash. I watched my marriage disintegrate while pretending everything was normal. Claire grew more distant, more critical, more obvious about her affair with Sean. She'd disappear for hours at a time, claiming work emergencies or yoga classes that never seemed to make her more flexible. I started documenting everything: times she left, when she came home, the lies she told. I found receipts for restaurants I'd never been to, hotel charges on our credit card for business meetings, and text messages she thought she'd deleted. The most damning evidence came from her laptop, which she'd carelessly left open one evening while taking a shower. There, in her email, was a thread with Sean that read like a romance novel, written by people who'd never experienced actual romance. "Tonight was incredible," one message read. "I can't stop thinking about your hands." "We have to be more careful," Sean had replied. "Jessica is getting suspicious, and Dan isn't as clueless as we thought." "Dan is a non-issue," Claire had written back. "He's too comfortable to rock the boat. Besides, I'm planning to end things after Emily graduates." I took screenshots of everything and saved them to a secure folder. Knowledge is power, and I was building an arsenal. Emily came home for Christmas break, and I watched her notice the tension between her parents. She kept asking if everything was okay, and Claire and I both lied to her face, claiming we were just stressed about work. "You and Dad seem weird," Emily said to me one afternoon while we were hanging Christmas lights. "We're fine, sweetheart," I lied. "Just going through a rough patch. All couples do." She didn't look convinced, but she didn't push it either. I hated lying to my daughter, but I wasn't ready to blow up her world just yet. The holidays were a nightmare of forced smiles and fake cheer. Sean and Jessica came to our New Year's Eve party, and I had to watch my wife flirt with another man while his oblivious wife made small talk about their son's college applications. "You're lucky to have such a devoted husband," Jessica said to Claire at one point, nodding toward me. "Sean's always working. Sometimes I feel like a single mother. Claire's smile was so fake it could have been made of plastic. Dan is very reliable, she said, making it sound like a disease. Then came the call that changed everything. It was a Tuesday in March, almost 6 months since I'd overheard Claire planning to leave me. I was in my office reviewing a commercial inspection when my phone rang. Claire's name appeared on the screen. Dan? Her voice sounded strange, shaky. What's wrong? I asked. I need to tell you something, she said. Emily called me this morning. She's engaged. I sat up straighter. Engaged? To who? She never mentioned she was even dating anyone seriously. His name is David Morrison. She met him at school. They've been together for 8 months. 8 months. Our daughter had been in a serious relationship for 8 months and hadn't told us. That said something about the state of our family. Okay, I said slowly. That's sudden. But if she's happy... There's more, Claire interrupted. They want to get married this summer. A small ceremony, family only. This summer? That's only 4 months away. She wants us both there, Dan. Together. She doesn't know about us. About us. As if our marriage was some dirty secret instead of a 15-year partnership that she'd decided to destroy. Of course I'll be there, I said. She's my daughter. I know this is complicated, Claire said, and I could hear something in her voice I hadn't heard in months. Uncertainty. But we need to figure out how to handle this. Handle what exactly? Us, the situation. Emily can't know about Sean until after the wedding. So now I was expected to play the happy husband for our daughter's sake, while my wife continued her affair. The audacity was breathtaking. Don't worry, I said, my voice carefully neutral. I'll play my part. I wouldn't want to ruin Emily's special day. There was a long pause. Thank you, Claire said finally. After I hung up, I sat in my office and started planning. Emily's wedding would be the perfect opportunity to end this charade once and for all. Claire wanted to wait until after the ceremony to blow up our family. Fine, but she wouldn't get to control the narrative. I called Emily that evening. Dad! Her voice was bright with excitement. Did Mom tell you the news? She did, sweetheart. Tell me about David. For the next hour, Emily gushed about her fiancé. He was a year ahead of her in the business program, from a good family in Connecticut, smart and funny and kind. She sounded genuinely happy, which made what I was planning even more complicated. I want you to walk me down the aisle, she said. I know it's traditional, but it means everything to me. I wouldn't miss it for the world, I told her, and meant it. The wedding's going to be small, she continued. Just immediate family and a few close friends. We found this beautiful venue in the Berkshires, very intimate. Perfect. Intimate meant fewer witnesses to what I was planning. Over the next few weeks, I watched Claire stress about the wedding planning while continuing her affair with Sean. She'd disappear for hours to help with arrangements, then come home with her lipstick smudged and her hair messed up. The irony wasn't lost on me. While planning our daughter's wedding, a celebration of love and commitment, Claire was destroying her own marriage. I started my own preparations. I reached out to Pete Kowalski, an old friend from my journalism days, who now worked as a private investigator. I hired him to document Sean and Claire's affair with photographs and video evidence. You sure about this, Dan? Pete asked when I explained what I needed. Once you go down this road, there's no coming back. I'm already past the point of no return, I told him. I just want to make sure everyone else knows it too. The wedding was set for June 15th, a Saturday afternoon at a vineyard in western Massachusetts. As the date approached, Claire became increasingly nervous. She snapped at me over small things, criticized everything I did, and spent even more time with Sean. I need you to promise me something, she said one evening, 2 weeks before the wedding. We were in our bedroom, getting ready for bed like the married couple we were pretending to be. What's that? Promise me you won't cause any drama at Emily's wedding. Whatever problems we have, we keep them private until after she gets married. I looked at my wife, really looked at her. She was still beautiful, still the woman I'd fallen in love with in college. But there was something different in her eyes now, something cold and calculating that hadn't been there before. I promise, I said, that I'll give Emily the wedding she deserves. It wasn't exactly what Claire had asked for, but she seemed satisfied. The night before the wedding, I lay in bed next to my wife one last time and thought about the man I used to be, the man who'd believed in love and loyalty and keeping promises. That man was about to disappear forever. Tomorrow, at our daughter's wedding, I was going to burn my old life to the ground, and unlike Claire, I was going to make sure everyone got to watch. The morning of Emily's wedding dawned clear and beautiful, the kind of perfect June day that makes you believe in second chances. I stood in the bathroom of our hotel room, adjusting my tie and watching Claire in the mirror as she applied lipstick with the precision of a surgeon. "You look beautiful," I said, because it was true and because it might be the last honest compliment I'd ever give her. She paused, meeting my eyes in the mirror. For just a moment, I saw something that might have been regret flicker across her face. Then it was gone, replaced by the polite smile she'd been giving me for months. "Thank you," she said. "You look handsome too." We drove to the vineyard in silence, both lost in our own thoughts. I was running through my plan one more time, checking every detail. Claire was probably thinking about Sean, who would be arriving with his family as our old friends. The venue was everything Emily had promised. A sprawling vineyard with rolling hills, a rustic barn decorated with white flowers, and a ceremony space overlooking the valley. Our daughter had good taste, I'd give her that. Emily was radiant in her wedding dress, a simple but elegant design that made her look like a princess. When she saw me, she burst into tears and threw her arms around my neck. "Daddy," she whispered, "I'm so nervous." "You're going to be perfect," I told her, holding her tight. "David's a lucky man." "I love you," she said. "I love you too, sweetheart, more than you'll ever know." The ceremony was scheduled for 4 o'clock. Guests started arriving around 3:30, and I positioned myself near the entrance to watch. Sean and Jessica arrived with their son Kyle, Sean looking uncomfortable in a rented tux. He nodded at me politely, probably wondering why I seemed so relaxed. "Beautiful day for a wedding," he said, making conversation. "Perfect day for it," I agreed. "Sometimes you have to wait for just the right moment to make your move." He looked puzzled by that comment, but before he could respond, Claire appeared and whisked him away to meet some of Emily's friends. I found my seat in the front row and watched the guests file in. There were about 50 people total. Emily's college friends, David's family from Connecticut, a few relatives from both sides, and some family friends. Pete Kowalski was there too, posing as a wedding photographer with a very expensive camera. At 4 o'clock sharp, the music started. David took his place at the altar, looking nervous but happy. His groomsmen flanked him, all young men in matching navy suits who probably had bright futures ahead of them. Then came the bridesmaids, Emily's college friends in pale blue dresses, followed by the maid of honor, her roommate Sarah. Everyone looked beautiful and happy, and completely unaware that they were about to witness more than just a wedding ceremony. Finally, the wedding march began, and Emily appeared at the back of the aisle. She was stunning, absolutely glowing with happiness. I stood up and offered her my arm, and together we began the walk that every father dreams of and dreads in equal measure. "Thank you for being here," she whispered as we walked. "Both of you. I know things have been weird lately." "Nothing's weird today," I told her. "Today is perfect." And it was, right up until the moment I handed her off to David and took my seat next to Claire. That's when I saw Sean's wife Jessica staring at her husband with an expression I recognized, the look of a woman who'd finally figured out what everyone else already knew. The ceremony was beautiful, Emily and David exchanged vows they'd written themselves, promising to love and honor and cherish each other through whatever life threw at them. I found myself wondering if Claire remembered making similar promises to me 15 years ago. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, everyone cheered and applauded. Emily and David kissed, then walked back down the aisle as husband and wife while their guests threw rice and took pictures. During the cocktail hour, I mingled with the other guests, making small talk and accepting congratulations on my daughter's marriage. I kept an eye on Claire and Sean, who were being careful to stay apart, but kept stealing glances at each other. Jessica Morrison, David's mother, approached me near the bar. "Your daughter is lovely," she said. "You must be very proud." "I am," I replied. "She's the best thing I've ever done." "It's wonderful when families come together like this," she continued. "Though I have to ask, is everything all right with your wife? She seems distracted." I glanced over at Claire, who was laughing a little too loudly at something one of Emily's friends had said. "Wedding stress," I said diplomatically. "She's been planning this for months." The reception began at 6 o'clock with dinner in the vineyard's restored barn. I was seated at the head table between Emily and Claire, with a perfect view of the entire room. Sean was at a table near the back with Jessica and Kyle, far enough away to avoid suspicion, but close enough for him and Claire to make eye contact. During the salad course, I stood up and tapped my wine glass with a knife. The room gradually fell quiet as people realized the father of the bride was about to make a speech. "Thank you all for being here tonight," I began, my voice carrying clearly through the room. "Emily, you look absolutely beautiful, and David, welcome to our family." There was applause, and I waited for it to die down before continuing. "Marriage is a funny thing," I said, looking directly at Claire. "When you're young, you think love is enough. You believe that if two people care about each other, they can overcome anything. But as you get older, you realize that marriage requires more than love. It requires honesty, loyalty, and respect." Claire's face had gone pale. She was staring at me with growing alarm, probably wondering where I was going with this. "Emily and David, you're starting your lives together with all the hope and promise in the world. Hold on to that. Don't let anyone convince you that what you have isn't worth fighting for. Don't let anyone make you feel like you're not enough." I raised my glass. "To Emily and David, and to the kind of love that lasts." Everyone toasted and applauded, but Claire's hand was shaking as she lifted her wine glass. She leaned over to me as people returned to their conversations. "What are you doing?" she whispered. "Giving a toast to our daughter," I replied innocently. "Dan, you promised—" "I promised to give Emily the wedding she deserves," I interrupted, "and that's exactly what I'm doing." The evening continued with dancing and more toasts. Emily was having the time of her life, spinning around the dance floor with her new husband, while their friends cheered them on. For a while, I almost forgot about my plan and just enjoyed watching my daughter be happy. But then I saw Sean slip out of the barn, followed a few minutes later by Claire. They thought they were being discreet, but I'd been watching them all night. I waited 5 minutes, then followed them outside. I found them behind the catering tent, locked in an embrace that made my stomach turn. They were so absorbed in each other that they didn't notice me approaching until I was close enough to hear their conversation. "We can't keep doing this," Claire was saying. "It's getting too complicated." "After tonight, we won't have to hide anymore," Sean replied. "You said you were going to tell him after the wedding." "I am, but what? You're having second thoughts?" Claire pulled back slightly. "No, it's just seeing him tonight, watching him with Emily. I remember why I fell in love with him in the first place." "That was a long time ago," Sean said, his voice taking on a harder edge. "You told me you were done with him. You said he was boring, that he didn't appreciate you." "He is boring," Claire said quickly. "And he doesn't appreciate me. Not like you do." I'd heard enough. I stepped out from behind the tent, my phone in my hand, the video recording app still running. "Well," I said, my voice conversational. This is interesting. They sprang apart like teenagers caught by their parents. Claire's face went white, while Sean looked like he was going to be sick. Dan, Claire stammered. This isn't what it looks like. I held up my phone. Really? Because it looks like my wife of 15 years is having an affair with our family friend at our daughter's wedding, and I have it all on video. Sean found his voice. Look, Dan, we can explain. Oh, I'm sure you can, I said. I bet you have a whole story worked out. But here's the thing. I don't need explanations anymore. I have all the evidence I need. I pulled out a manila envelope from inside my jacket. Photos, emails, credit card receipts, hotel records. Pete Kowalski is very thorough. Claire's legs gave out, and she sat down hard on a nearby chair. Oh, God, she whispered. The question now, I continued, is what we do with this information. See, I made a promise to Emily that nothing would ruin her wedding day, and I intend to keep that promise. Sean straightened up, probably thinking he was off the hook. So we can work this out like adults? I'm not finished, I said sharply. Emily's wedding day ends at midnight. After that, all bets are off. I looked at my watch. It's currently 9:30. That gives you both exactly 2.5 hours to figure out how you want to handle this. Because at 12:01 a.m., I'm sending copies of everything to Jessica, to Emily, to Claire's boss at Meridian Marketing, and to the partners at Sean's law firm. You can't do that, Sean said desperately. It would destroy both our careers. Should have thought of that before you decided to destroy my marriage, I replied. Claire was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. Please, Dan, we can work this out. We can go to counseling. 15 years too late for that, I said. You made your choice, Claire. Now you get to live with the consequences. I turned to walk away, then paused. Oh, and don't even think about leaving early. If either of you disappears before Emily cuts the cake, the photos go out tonight instead of tomorrow. I walked back to the reception, leaving them to contemplate their future. Inside the barn, the party was in full swing. Emily was dancing with David's father while her new husband chatted with his college friends. She looked radiant, completely unaware of the drama unfolding outside. I spent the rest of the evening playing the part of the proud father, dancing with my daughter, chatting with guests, and accepting congratulations. All while watching Claire and Sean try to act normal, despite knowing their world was about to implode. At 11:30, Emily and David cut the cake, a 3-tier masterpiece decorated with sugar flowers. Everyone gathered around to take pictures and cheer as they fed each other the first bites. This has been the most perfect day, Emily said, hugging me tight. Thank you for everything, Dad. You deserve all the happiness in the world, I told her, meaning every word. As midnight approached, I made my way to the bar and ordered a double whiskey. Claire appeared beside me, looking haggard and desperate. Please don't do this, she whispered. Think about Emily. This will destroy her. I looked at my wife one last time. Emily will be fine, I said. She's stronger than you think, and she deserves to know the truth about her parents. The clock on my phone ticked over to 12:01 a.m. I pulled out my phone and started sending emails. The first casualty of war is always innocence, and by Monday morning, everyone's innocence was dead and buried. I'd spent Sunday in my home office fielding phone calls and watching my carefully planted bombs explode across social media. Pete had done his job well. The photos were crystal clear, the timestamps undeniable, and the evidence overwhelming. Emily called first at 7 a.m., sobbing into the phone. Dad, what's happening? Mom won't answer her phone, and there are all these pictures online. I'm sorry you had to find out this way, sweetheart, I said, meaning it. But you deserve to know the truth. How long has this been going on? At least 6 months that I can prove. Probably longer. There was a long silence then. I'm coming home. You're supposed to be on your honeymoon. David understands. We're driving back from the Cape this morning. The second call came from my brother Mike in Chicago. Jesus Christ, Dan, what did you do? The whole family's talking about it. I exposed a cheating wife and her scumbag boyfriend, I said. What would you have done? Maybe not at my daughter's wedding reception. I waited until after midnight. Technically, the wedding was over. The third call was from Tara, Claire's best friend and enabler. You bastard, she snarled into the phone. Do you have any idea what you've done to her? About as much as she did to me, I replied. Where is she, by the way? She never came home last night. She's staying with me, and she's not coming back. Good. Tell her I'll have her things packed by the end of the week. But the call that really mattered came at 10 a.m. from Jessica Beckett. Mr. Foster? This is Jessica, Sean's wife. I think we need to talk. We met at a coffee shop in Newton, far from our usual haunts. Jessica looked like she'd aged 10 years overnight, her eyes red from crying, her hands shaking as she held her coffee cup. I hired a private investigator 3 months ago, she said without preamble. I knew something was wrong, but I couldn't prove it. I slid a copy of Pete's report across the table. Now you can. She flipped through the photos, her face growing harder with each page. How long have you known? Since October. I've been gathering evidence ever since. Why didn't you tell me? Because I needed to be sure, and because I wanted to control when and how it came out. She closed the folder and looked at me directly. What do you want from me? Nothing, but I thought you should know that Sean's been using firm resources to pay for hotel rooms and dinners. Check your credit card statements. I bet you'll find some interesting charges. Her laugh was bitter. Oh, I already did. Apparently, I've been paying for my husband's affair for months without knowing it. What are you going to do? Divorce him. Take him for everything he's worth. Make sure he never sees Kyle again without supervision. She paused. What about you? Same plan, minus the kids part. Emily's an adult. She can make her own choices about relationships. We sat in silence for a moment, two casualties of other people's selfishness. There's something else, Jessica said finally. Something your private investigator might not have found. She pulled out her own folder and slid it across to me. Sean's been embezzling from his firm. Small amounts over the past year, but it adds up. I found the records on his home computer. I opened the folder and whistled low. Bank statements, forged documents, altered billing records. Sean had been stealing from his partners to fund his affair with my wife. This is enough to get him disbarred, I said. That's the idea. I'm turning it over to the State Bar Association tomorrow. Why are you showing me this? Because Claire knew. Look at the last page. There, in Claire's handwriting, was a note. Sean, make sure the Martindale account transfer doesn't show up on the monthly reports. Jay is getting suspicious about the credit card bills. My wife wasn't just an adulteress. She was an accessory to embezzlement. I thought you should know what kind of woman you were married to, Jessica said. That afternoon, Emily and David arrived at the house. My daughter looked exhausted and heartbroken, but there was steel in her eyes that reminded me of myself. I want to hear it from you, she said. All of it. So I told her everything. The months of lies, the evidence I'd gathered, the confrontation at the wedding. I showed her the photos, the emails, the credit card statements. I watched my little girl grow up in real time as she processed the destruction of everything she'd believed about her family. Where's Mom now? She asked when I finished. Staying with Tara. She hasn't been back since the wedding. Good, Emily said fiercely. I don't want to see her. Emily. No, Dad. She lied to all of us. She destroyed our family for some sleazy lawyer. She made me invite him to my wedding while she was sleeping with him. Her voice broke. How could she do that to us? David, who'd been quiet through the whole conversation, finally spoke up. What can we do to help? I looked at my new son-in-law with newfound respect. Just take care of Emily. That's all I need. That evening, Claire finally called. We need to talk, she said, her voice hoarse. No, we don't. Have your lawyer call my lawyer. Dan, please. Let me explain. Explain what? That you've been lying to me for months? That you were planning to leave me after Emily's wedding? That you helped your boyfriend steal money from his law firm? Silence. You know about that? She said finally. I know everything, Claire. Jessica Beckett is very thorough. It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. You're not just a cheating wife, you're a criminal. You can't prove anything. Actually, I can. Your handwriting is very distinctive. Another long silence. What do you want? She asked. I want you out of my life, permanently. I want you to sign whatever papers my lawyer puts in front of you without argument. And I want you to stay away from Emily until she decides she's ready to deal with you. She's my daughter, too. Then you should have thought about that before you decided to blow up her family. The next few weeks were a blur of lawyers, paperwork, and damage control. Sean was fired from his firm and faced criminal charges for embezzlement. Claire was named as a co-conspirator but avoided prosecution in exchange for her testimony against him. Our mutual friends chose sides, and most of them chose Claire. Apparently, I was the villain in this story for exposing the affair instead of handling it discreetly. Tara led the charge, spreading rumors that I'd been emotionally abusive, that I'd driven Claire into Sean's arms through neglect and indifference. You humiliated her in front of everyone, Monica from Claire's office told me when she called to give me a piece of her mind. You could have handled this privately. She humiliated herself, I replied. I just made sure everyone knew about it. You're a vindictive bastard, Dan Foster. Yeah, I said. I am. And I'm just getting started. Because the truth was, I wasn't done yet. Claire and Sean had destroyed my marriage, embarrassed my daughter, and turned our friends against me. They'd made me the villain in my own life story. But they'd forgotten something important about me. I used to be a journalist, which meant I was very good at digging up dirt and even better at knowing exactly when and how to use it. And I'd been saving the best for last. The final act of my revenge came on a Thursday evening in August, exactly 2 months after Emily's wedding. I'd spent those weeks carefully planning every detail, waiting for the perfect moment to deliver the killing blow. Claire had moved in with Sean after Jessica threw him out. They'd found a small apartment in Cambridge, probably thinking they could start fresh and wait for the scandal to blow over. Sean was facing criminal charges, but his lawyer seemed confident they could work out a plea deal that would keep him out of prison. They were both wrong. I'd invited everyone to my house that evening: Emily and David, Pete Kowalski, Jessica Beckett, and a few other key players in this drama. I'd also sent invitations to Tara, Monica, and the rest of Claire's support network, though I doubted they'd show up. The centerpiece of my dining room table was a large manila envelope and a bottle of champagne that had been aging in my basement for 15 years, a gift from Claire's father when we'd bought the house. Emily arrived first, looking curious and slightly worried. "What's this about, Dad? You've been acting mysterious all week." "Patience, sweetheart. Wait until everyone gets here." Pete showed up next, carrying a laptop and a satisfied grin. "You sure you want to do this, Dan? Once this gets out, there's no putting it back in the box." "I'm sure," I said. "Some boxes are meant to be opened." Jessica arrived with her divorce lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman named Patricia Collins, who specialized in high-asset divorces involving professional misconduct. David came straight from work, still wearing his business suit and looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. To my surprise, Tara actually showed up, along with Monica and 2 other women from Claire's inner circle. They sat together on my couch like a hostile jury, whispering among themselves and shooting daggers at me with their eyes. "Thank you all for coming," I began, standing at the head of my dining room table. "I know this is unusual, but I wanted you all to hear this together." "Hear what?" Tara demanded. "Another one of your vindictive speeches about how Claire wronged you?" "Actually," I said, opening the manila envelope, "I wanted you to hear about how Claire and Sean wronged a lot more people than just me." I pulled out the first document, a copy of Sean's law firm's client trust account records. Sean Beckett didn't just steal money from his firm, I announced. He stole money from his clients, elderly clients who trusted him to handle their estates, accident victims who needed settlement money for medical bills, families who hired him to handle their loved ones' wills. The room went dead silent. Over the past 18 months, Sean embezzled nearly $200,000 from client accounts. He used that money to pay for hotel rooms, expensive dinners, jewelry, and a weekend trip to Martha's Vineyard with my wife. I pulled out the second set of documents, bank records showing transfers from Sean's client accounts to credit cards that paid for his affair. Claire wasn't just sleeping with a married man, I continued. She was spending stolen money, money that belonged to grieving widows and injured workers. Monica stood up abruptly. "You're lying. Claire would never—" "Claire helped him cover it up," I interrupted, pulling out copies of altered documents in Claire's handwriting. She used her marketing skills to create fake invoices and billing statements to hide the missing money. Emily gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "Oh my God." "There's more," I said, pulling out the final set of documents. "Sean's been doing this for years, not months. He's stolen over $500,000 from clients going back 3 years, and Claire has known about it for at least the past year." I handed copies of everything to Jessica's lawyer, who flipped through them with growing amazement. "This is enough to put him away for decades," Patricia said. "And your wife could face serious charges as an accessory." "Ex-wife," I corrected. "The divorce was finalized yesterday." Tara was on her feet now, her face red with anger. "Even if this is true, what gives you the right to destroy people's lives?" "What gave them the right to destroy mine?" I shot back. "What gave them the right to steal from elderly clients and injured workers? What gave Claire the right to lie to our daughter's face while she was planning her wedding?" "You're a bitter, vindictive man," Monica said. "This is just revenge." "You're absolutely right," I agreed. "This is revenge, and it feels fantastic." I picked up the bottle of champagne and popped the cork, letting it fly across the room. The sound was like a gunshot in the quiet house. "You see, ladies, you all made the same mistake Claire made. You underestimated me. You thought I was just some boring home inspector who would quietly accept being betrayed and humiliated." I poured champagne into a glass and held it up like a toast. "But I'm not just a home inspector. I'm a former investigative journalist who spent 10 years digging up corruption and exposing liars. I know how to find dirt, and I know how to use it." Emily was staring at me with a mixture of pride and concern. "Dad, what happens now?" "Now," I said, "Sean goes to prison for a very long time. Claire faces criminal charges as his accomplice. And all of you get to decide whether you want to keep defending people who stole money from widows and orphans." The doorbell rang, interrupting my speech. Through the window, I could see 2 police cars parked in my driveway. "Right on time," I said, walking to the front door. 2 detectives stood on my porch, along with an assistant district attorney I'd been working with for the past month. "Mr. Foster," one of the detectives said, "we have warrants for the arrest of Sean Beckett and Claire Foster on charges of embezzlement, fraud, and conspiracy." "They're not here," I said, "but I can tell you exactly where to find them." As the police left to make their arrests, I returned to my living room. Tara and her friends were gone, having fled as soon as they saw the squad cars. Only Emily, David, Pete, Jessica, and Patricia remained. "How long have you been planning this?" Jessica asked. "Since the day after the wedding," I admitted. "I knew about the affair, but I didn't know about the embezzlement until you showed me those documents. That's when I decided to really dig deep." "The clients who were robbed," Emily said quietly. "Do they know?" "They will tomorrow. The DA's office is contacting all of them. Most of the money is gone, but Sean's assets will be seized and distributed to the victims." Patricia looked up from the documents. "Your ex-wife is looking at 5 to 10 years if she's convicted on all counts." I felt a moment of something that might have been regret. but it passed quickly. Claire had made her choices. Now she got to live with the consequences. "There's one more thing," I said, reaching into the envelope one last time. I pulled out a thick folder and handed it to Emily. "What's this?" she asked. "Your college fund," I said. "The money your mother and I saved for your education." Turns out Claire had been slowly draining it to pay for her affair. "This is documentation of every withdrawal, every forged signature, every lie she told to steal from her own daughter's future." Emily's hands shook as she flipped through the papers. "She stole my college money? $43,000 over 8 months. Money that was supposed to pay for your senior year in graduate school." My daughter started crying then. Not the gentle tears of sadness, but the harsh sobs of someone whose heart has been completely broken. David put his arms around her while I stood there feeling like the worst father in the world for being the one to tell her the truth. "I'm sorry, sweetheart," I said. "I know this is a lot to process." "No," she said, wiping her eyes. "I'm glad you told me. I'm glad you fought back. I'm proud of you for not letting them get away with it." She stood up and hugged me tight, and for the first time in months, I felt like I might actually survive this. "What happens now?" David asked. "Now we move on," I said. "Emily finishes school, you two build your life together, and I figure out what comes next for me." "And Mom?" I looked at my daughter, this strong, young woman who'd been forced to grow up too fast because of her mother's selfishness. "Your mother made her choices," I said. "She chose Sean over our family. She chose lies over truth. She chose to steal from clients and from you. Now she gets to face the consequences of those choices." I raised my champagne glass one more time. "To honesty," I said. "The only thing that can't be stolen or faked." Emily and David raised their glasses. Jessica and Patricia joined in. Even Pete, who'd seen enough human ugliness to last several lifetimes, managed a smile. "To honesty," they echoed. Outside, I could hear sirens in the distance, probably heading to Sean and Claire's apartment. In a few hours, they'd be in jail cells, finally facing the justice they'd avoided for so long. I'd lost my marriage, most of my friends, and 15 years of my life. But I'd gained something too: self-respect, my daughter's admiration, and the satisfaction of knowing that sometimes the good guys actually win. I took a sip of champagne and smiled. Sometimes the best revenge really is a dish best served cold. And sometimes the best toast is the last one you'll ever have to make to people who never deserved your loyalty in the first place. Claire and Sean were arrested that night. They were both convicted 6 months later. Sean got 12 years for embezzlement and fraud. Claire got 4 years as an accessory. The stolen money was never fully recovered, but Sean's assets helped compensate some of the victims. Emily finished college with honors and started her own business. She never spoke to her mother again. I sold the house and moved to a smaller place near the coast. I still do home inspections, but I also started writing again, true crime articles about corruption and betrayal. And every year on the anniversary of Emily's wedding, I raise a glass of champagne and toast to the night I learned that sometimes being the villain in someone else's story means being the hero in your own.